Good morning, welcome to Join the Dots. In my world, and I've tried to explain this over the series of videos that I've presented so far, leading indicators are so important, but these are the things that you are too busy, too preoccupied, too tired to actually research and find, and you need people to find them for you, and that's what I do. I'm fascinated by the fact that because I have something called insight and I can see these things developing, I'm fascinated that people can't or don't have the time or just can't see it. I'm fascinated because it's like anything in life. If you can see something that others can't see, you're at a loss to explain why they can't see it. Why can't they see these things? So I take a series of events that I've just mapped out over the last few days and I say, can you try and join the dots? I can. And I find it hard to understand why other people can't. But that's life and we all have to accept that, and that's why we have sites like this which explain these things in a way that helps you rather than hides these things so that they shock you. And that's the world we live in. So, fraud, inhumane behaviour, I call it, I try and define these things because I think there must be some term that covers these up or describes them. And I think incremental creep is the best expression I can come up with. It's where a situation develops so slowly over time, so gradually that no one can see the change, and then suddenly they're presented with the conclusion which is dramatic and damaging, and they couldn't see it develop because they weren't looking for leading indicators. Okay, they're not looking for them. They just want the answer. They don't want the trouble of going through the effort of finding the issues, defining those issues, following those issues, understanding those. They don't want it. They just want an answer. Give me an answer in 2 minutes, then I'll do it. No, that's not what this is about, because that's not what life's about. But what I'm seeing at the moment in my world is that gold and silver are telling you so much is wrong. So much. Now, we've talked economically about the lies in the China data, the lies in the property valuations, the lies in the amount of debt there is in the Chinese market. So that's all effectively, or allegedly we should say, fraud, isn't it? Because they're all lies. They're not telling you the truth, but they cover it up in a way that they can claim is legal. Then we go to India. Now, India is the first time I'm mentioning India in this series of presentations, but here we have an incredibly detailed case being developed against one of the powerhouses in the Indian economy, the Reliance Group, Anil Ambani, and there is so much that is alleged fraud here, so much. Even the State Bank of India has classified loans as fraudulent. There is money laundering at a massive scale. There is alleged fraud in ESG contracts, solar panel contracts, everything, because this group has grown over, well, not hundreds of years, it's grown over tens of years, decades, and bit by bit by bit, a little bit more, push the grey line, push the grey line, push the grey line, and suddenly you've gone from white into black. The grey's gone, you've gone past it, you've broken all the rules, but you don't think so because you've done it gradually. But this incremental creep is dangerous to all of us. And if you can see it developing. Now, I know that health is a very delicate issue. I know it is, but please listen, because it's the truth. How do I know it's the truth? In the very early days of COVID, I talked by email with Robert Malone. I didn't know who Robert Malone would turn out to be. I knew he was an incredibly honest and professional scientist and a good social commentator and a human being breeding horses, ostriches and other animals on his farm. He was a human being in a world where a lot of businessmen, bankers, etc., politicians particularly, have no humanity left in them. None at all. And that is an incredible leading indicator. When there's no humanity in the people who govern, you know you've got a serious, serious problem, because all their guidelines have gone. Think of, I'll just switch to BlackRock for a minute. Think of BlackRock. Think of COVID. So in the midst of the pandemic, the most serious thing to affect humanity in hundreds of years, BlackRock goes out and buys swathes of property in order to make money, in order to stop ordinary people buying that property. Is that humane? Does that belong in our world? Where an institution so powerful, so big, can go out and stop ordinary people buying houses simply by buying swathes of properties from developers, such that ordinary people have to face a much higher price. So some individual in BlackRock, some bright spark had the idea, and it went through the system, and the system said, yeah, we can make money. BlackRock, the champions of ESG, the champions of humanity. Not at all. Incremental creeps. Because that's what they've done. And they've gone into the market and they've taken large swathes of residential, understand that word, residential property, and taken it off the market. And now they're selling them for profit, fiduciary duty. It's inhumane. In my world, it's inhumane. And this is what happens through a period from 2009 to 2020, right? We've had 11 years where the system has tried to repair its own corruption of 2000 to 2008, the subprime crisis, where incremental creep accelerated into that final blow-off of madness, where people were defrauded left, right and centre. And we're there again. And that's what gold and silver are telling us. Now, I mentioned Robert Malone a minute ago because Robert Malone and I exchanged emails in the early days of COVID because I read his comments and I saw him as a very, very serious social commentator, more than the scientist who has 9 patents on mRNA vaccines, because he was at the Salk Institute, I think it was 87, and he helped develop it when he was a very young man. Okay? And he helped develop mRNA process. Now, he is, I think, the co-chair on the new vaccine committee for Robert F. Kennedy. That's where he's got to. Because he's honest. Because he's humane. He cares for animals. He has humanity in him. How many people do we see now with humanity at the top? Companies, governments, whatever, institutions, authorities. How many people do we see at the top who've got any humanity left? Or is it just greed and power? That's all they have, greed and power. And that's what they'll fight for, because that power that they've got, they can't let go easily. And that's why you see these cases coming up now. And you're going to see more and more and more of these cases brought to light. In the UK at the moment, there's a huge case where the banks have been colluding with finance companies in the car market, and they've been basically agreeing to increase the interest rate because the bank gets more commission. This is going through the courts now. It's just been through the Supreme Court, which dropped 2 of the 3 cases but has left 1 in place. And that 1 in place has 9 to 18 billion pounds of fraud, for which those companies and banks are now going to have to repay the innocent public who are defrauded by institutions and banks who are just utterly greedy. Corporate fascism. I say it so many times. You're going to learn this expression and you're going to understand it as we go through this series of presentations. It is the most damaging and evil construct in the corporate world. Corporate fascism. Large corporations, governments coming together working, interacting to defraud the public, essentially. They'll argue it's not, but you know the effect. Okay, so that case, Lloyds Bank have already put a provision aside for £1.15 billion. So they know they're guilty. Otherwise, why would you provide money? Why would you put provisions aside? Can you see it? This is banks in the UK and finance companies. This is institutions, massive institutions in the United States like BlackRock, buying property at the height of a pandemic to make money from the public. That's what they did. And then we see now, and I've got a brilliant excerpt that I want to send you, and it's from Brett Weinstein on the Dark Horse Pod. Brett Weinstein, I think, is an incredibly intelligent gentleman, incredibly intelligent. And this one piece, it's less than 2 minutes. Honestly, it's less than 2 minutes. Please watch it. Please understand what the consequences would be if this was allowed to develop. Corporate fascism. So let's bring it back to us. We can see these things. We can see them now. I can see them. I'm showing you them. I want you to see them. I want you to understand them. I want you to realise that with all these incremental creep created by incremental creeps and institutions with no humanity at all are coming to a point where everything will be exposed. And what gold and silver markets and the lack of trust and the lack of belief in systems and the lack of belief in governments and the lack of belief in judiciary and the lack of belief in the police forces and the lack of belief in everything is screaming a tsunami of fraud will be shown to have been created over these years. And that's why we have to surf that tsunami. We do not wait until it breaks on us. We surf it. And we surf it by using gold, silver, and you may have other ideas. My idea in the crypto world is XRP, but I won't put you off XLM and I won't put you off Hedera, HBAR. I won't. Again, I'm learning all the time, and All In Crypto is my site to go to. And I'm learning from them. And XLM and HBAR, I've added a little bit to my collection of XRP. But there's two worlds coming. One is going to be metal backed, one is going to be crypto backed, in my view. Both of them I'm going to use to surf that wave. But that wave, that tsunami, is brewing, because all these cases that I'm talking about are just the ones I know about. How many more are undiscovered? How big is that tsunami going to be? Okay, thank you very much. I'll be back tomorrow.